So before we start, this is an interactive session, so this is not a regular lecture. So yeah, I will be there. I just want to give this. So either you scan the barcode with your mobile phone camera, or you can go to vvox.app in your browser and then enter the number that you can see here, which is 1-843-66595. So you will join a session which is called Ecg Session. So I will ask a few questions after I give you few information about, for example, the heart rate. I'll give you a few quiz and then you will interact with me. So names will not be shown, so don't feel shy, make as many mistakes as you want. So it will show exactly the percentage of the correct answer versus the incorrect one. So if we are ready now, we can go. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, welcome all of you in Salam International Hospital. This is a part of our educational program here in the hospital. It's a part of the Emergency Life Support Committee activities. So before we start, I would like to thank the whole hospital for organizing this event. And at the same time, I would like to thank the educational department and on top, Dr. Aruba Al-Musallam for her very good organization. I'm Islam Mahrous, I'm a cardiology consultant, intervention cardiology here in Salam International Hospital. I will be with you for the next 1 hour for giving you a lecture about the ECG. So I don't have any conflict of interest. So as I told you, this is not a regular lecture, but it's an interactive session. So speaking about the ECG, some people, they might think that the ECG might look like chain of hearts if he is or she is very romantic. And some others, they might think that the ECG is something like writing in Chinese language, but neither of them is true. So the true fact is, I will try today to make the ECG interpretation as much simple as I can. So my learning objectives today will be the following. So I'll give you some basics about the ECG, and then we will move to the normal ECG, how it looks like, and then we will try to find a scheme, how to find the diagnosis of the ECG through the heart rate calculation, the P wave, the PR interval, and finally the R wave. So to be frank with you, so giving all about ECG in one lecture is not possible. So what we can do today is just to find how to reach to the cardiac rhythm, how to know the cardiac rhythm, which is very important if you want to manage your patient. So AF is not the same like VF, PACs is not the same like PVCs. And so we will know how to differentiate between all of them throughout the presentation because it will be repeated all over. So we will start with the basics of the ECG. So starting with the paper of the ECG, as you can see, this is a small square, and this small square is equal to 0.04 second. So if we take like 5 squares, so we multiply 5 by 0.04, it will be 0.2. So again, the small square is 0.04 second. The 5 squares will be 0.2 seconds. We will use this very, very nice in how to calculate the heart rate. So let's go to the normal ECG. It's very, very important to know the normal in order to identify the abnormal ECG. So to be sure with you, we have to know what the conduction system is. So the heart impulse, the first heart impulse is coming from this point, which is called the SA node. This is something like the battery of the heart. So if this is working perfectly, the heart will work normally. If we have any problem with this node, the SA node, so we will start to have a problem with the heart. So this is the first impulse coming here. It's called the SA node. When the impulse is fired here, it will be represented in the ECG with upright deflection, small upright deflections called the P wave. And then the impulse will travel from this area, which is the SA node, to the whole atrium, and then reaching to another node here is called the AV node. When it reaches to this point, it's something like a bridge. So there will be like a delay here. It's called the PR interval. As you can see here, the P wave, then the PR interval, we usually measure the PR interval from the end of the P until the first beginning of the R wave or the Q wave, but actually we are using it from the beginning of the P wave just to make it easy for all of us. So beginning of the P to the beginning of the R wave. So this is called PR interval. And we will know how to use it in the next few slides. So as I said before, it is something like a bridge. So the impulse will come from the atrium to the ventricle through a bridge. There will be a normal or physiological delay. Does anybody know why we should have a delay between the atrium and the ventricle? So to make it easy for you, it's not a question, I will answer it. So for two reasons. First of all, the atrium should takes enough time to contract, and the ventricle is waiting until it takes all the blood from the atrium, and then the ventricle will contract. So if the impulse will come in the same time from the atrium to the ventricle, they will contract together. So what we need to have like a physiological delay between the atrium and the ventricle. That's number one. Number two, if we have any atrial tachycardia, it should not come immediately to all the tachycardia will go to the ventricle. So in this case, we will have ventricular tachycardia. That's why we have like a filter here. It's a bridge. So it doesn't allow all the impulse from the atrium to go to the ventricle. So we will have like a control on the ventricular rate. So anyway, this is a bridge as we said. And finally, the impulse will reach to this fibers, which is called Purkinje fibers, and this will be represented in the ECG with what we call QRS. Q, it's down, and then up is the R wave, which is the most important part here in our lecture, and then the S wave. And when the impulse is finished, so there will be the T wave and U wave. This is not important in our lecture today, but what is most important is the P wave, the PR interval, and the R wave. This is we're going to focus on this lecture, inshallah. So again, because you have always to memorize this in your mind, we have P wave, we have PR interval, we have the QRS, but we will focus on the R wave, and then the T and U wave we will not focus on today. So we have the P wave, we have the QRS, and again we have the T and U wave, and we have two intervals, the PR interval and another one, it's called the RR interval, and we're gonna use this in case we would like to know if the heart is regular or irregular. So we have to measure this interval, which is called the RR interval. So now you know the ECG, and what I'm asking you, please always keep this one in mind, because any abnormal ECG, we will show the normal ECG in order to compare between. You got that? So now we finished the normal ECG. Let's go to how to make a scheme for interpretation of the ECG. First of all, we start with the heart rate, then go into the P wave, PR interval, and then the R wave. So we should always have a scheme in our mind in order to find the diagnosis. I'll show you how to do it. So the first thing to do is to check the heart rate. This is quite important. And this depends on whether the heart rate is regular or irregular. So we have two ways here to calculate the heart rate. If anyone wants to calculate the heart rate, it's very simple. You put your hand on the pulse and you count it in 1 minute. But if I give you an ECG paper without any numbers, and so how can you find the ECG? This is the point here, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we go to calculate the heart rate. So as we said before, we have either of two conditions. Heart rate may be regular or irregular. But before we calculate the heart rate, what is the normal heart rate? Does anybody know? Excellent. So 60 to 100, that's correct. So to know my heart rate, I have to count it on my pulse. So what if I want to calculate in the ECG? So the normal one, as we said before, it's from 60 to 100. Below 60, what we call it? Bradycardia. It's a slow like a turtle. And if it's more than 100, what do we call it? it's a tachycardia. It's like a cheetah, the fastest animal on the earth. So we have either normal, bradycardia, or tachycardia. So as we said before, this is the normal. This is very slow, and this is very fast. So bradycardia, tachycardia. Then, so we have two conditions, as we said. Either the heart rate is regular, means that the distance between each R wave are quite the same, or irregular, means that, as you can see in this ECG, the distance here is quite the same, but here it's very irregular. If you measure the distance between the R wave, it's completely inconstant. Okay, so let's take the first. Okay, so let's take the first one. If the heart rate is regular, so we have a special method to do it. First of all, okay, so we locate one of the R wave on this heavy red line, and then we try to find the next one. And then we count how many boxes in between, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So first of all, we locate one of the R wave that's located on one of the heavy red line like this one. This one doesn't work, this one also doesn't work, but this one is perfectly working here. And then we see the next one. How many boxes in between? We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we have a fixed number, which is 300. If we divide 300 by the number of the boxes here, so which is 4 in this condition, so the heart rate should be 75. So this is the way to calculate the heart rate in case that the heart is regular. So let's take another example. So again, this is located here, and this is the next R wave. How many boxes in between we have to count? It's 4. 300 divided by 4, so it's 75. Let's take another example. So this is normal or abnormal? It's normal. So it's not a turtle or a cheetah. So let's take another example here. So this one is perfectly located on the heavy red line. So let's count how many boxes in between. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 300 divided by 6. So the heart rate should be, is it normal? It's bradycardia. Why bradycardia? Because it's less than 60. So this is how the heart rate, so it is moving normally from the SA node to the AV node to the fiber, Purkinje fiber, left and right bundle branch, and then the Purkinje fiber, but in a slow rate, in less than 60 beats per minute. So let's now take another example. So for example, this R wave is located on a heavy red line, and this is the next one. How many boxes in between? Almost 2.5. So 300 divided by 2.5, it's almost like 120. Is it normal, brady, or tachycardia? Tachycardia. Because the heart rate is above 100, so this is a cheetah. So this is a tachycardia. So the same way, like normal conditions, so the pulse will go from the battery of the heart, which is the SA node, but in a faster rate. So the heart rate is not 100, it's 120. This is what we call sinus tachycardia. Why sinus? Because it's coming from the normal origin of the heart, the normal battery of the heart, but in a faster rate. So what in the other condition if the heart rate is irregular? If the heart rate is irregular, we cannot use the first method. So what we're going to do? So you have to take at least 1.5 meters of the ECG in order to count how many R waves are coming in 1 minute. So you have to make 1.5 meters of ECG. That's not possible. So we have to find another easier way. They give you only one sheet of paper of ECG, which is almost 30 centimeters. So how can I calculate the heart rate if the heart rate is irregular? Why we said irregular? Because if you check the distance between the R wave, they are not the same. So this is irregular. First method cannot be applied here. So what we're going to do? So as we said before in the beginning of this presentation, that this is 0.02 seconds. Only big box, 0.2 seconds. Are we calculating the heart rate in 0.2 seconds or in 60 seconds? It's 60 seconds. You need to know the heart rate in 1 minute, right? You say that, for example, this heart rate is 100 per minute. Correct? Okay, so what we're going to do, we'll take 15 boxes out of this ECG. This 15 box 0.2 multiplied by 15 books. So this is representing only 3 seconds in the ECG. Okay? And then we know how many QRS coming here. How many are waved? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 beats in 3 seconds. Only 3 seconds. So are we calculating the heart rate in 3 seconds? We are calculating the heart rate in 60 seconds. So if we multiply this number by 20, so this will give you the heart rate in 1 minute. So what we're going to do, this is 15 books, means that this is 3 seconds. And we have 5 QRS in 3 seconds. If we multiply 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So QRS in 3 seconds, it's only 5. So what if you multiply this number by 20, it will give you the heart rate in 60 seconds, or another term, it's 1 minute. Okay. So let's take an example of this. Is this regular? It's irregular. So first of all, the first method cannot be applied here. So we have to go to the second method. What is the second method? Locate any 15 books here. So this is the number of QRS or the heart rate in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if we multiply 5 by 20, so this will give you the heart rate in 1 minute or 60 seconds. So this method, you can use it in case that the heart rate is irregular. Let's take another example. So let's count with me. Is this, first of all, this is regular? Of course it's not regular. It's irregular. Why? Because the distance between each R wave are not the same. So let's locate 15 books like here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 8 QRS in 3 seconds. As we see here, I'm counting with you on the screen. We have 8 QRS, okay, in 3 seconds. If we multiply by 20, so this will give you the heart rate in 1 minute. So what is the heart rate here? 160. So this is the second method you have to use, okay, in case that the heart rate is irregular. So now we're going to start the quiz. So I'm asking you again, please, either you go in your browser to vivox.app and then you can enter this number, or you can scan the barcode. You have this paper, you can directly from your camera, you can scan your barcode. And in this case, we will start to interact together. So don't feel any shame, don't feel any shy. Names will not be shown. So you can do as mistakes as you want, no problem. We are here just to learn how to know the ECG. So we will start the poll now. So can you see the answer in your mobile phone? So you choose one of them. This is a regular heart rate, so we have to use the first method. So now the poll is ending. So 100 people, they choose 75. Excellent. So why 75 is the correct answer? Because as we said before, if we located one of the R wave here, because this is regular, so we need to know how many boxes in between, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 300 divided by 4, so it's 75. So this is normal. So let's take the next one. This is also regular, guys. So first method should be applied here. So you located one of the R wave on the heavy red line, then start to count, then 300 divided by the number of the boxes. So which one is correct? I have only 6 people participating. 7, 9, 10 people. Great. So, okay. So some people, they choose 100, 75, 50. Let's see the correct answer on your mobile or even here on the screen. So it's 150. Why 150 is the correct answer? So I'm happy with this. You just participate and give the answer, and I will show to you why. So if we locate, for example, this one, how many boxes in between? It's only 2. So 300 divided by 2, so the answer is 150. This is normal, brady or tachycardia? It's tachycardia. Why? Because it's above 100. So let's start this one. How many boxes? This is regular. Remember, huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now let's see the answer. Oh my goodness. So 100% they choose 50. So 50 is normal, brady or tachycardia? Bradycardia. It's less than 60. Excellent. So why? Because this is a heavy red line. This is the next R wave. How many boxes in between? We have 6. 300 divided by 6, so it's 50. So this is a bradycardia. So let's take another example. Please, I need you to focus here. Is this regular ECG or irregular? Irregular. So can we use the first method? It should not be applied here. So what we have to do, I just made it easy for you. 15 books, 3 seconds. Multiply the number that you count here by 20, so you got the heart rate. Very easy. Let's start the poll. Okay, so some people they said 100, some people they said 150. Let's see the correct answer, either in your mobile or here on the screen. It's 220. Why? Because here I give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, see, if we multiply this by 20, so you have 220. It's almost 10. So 220. So it's tachycardia, bradycardia, or normal. It's tachycardia. So now we are going to check the R wave. So the R wave here, we have to know whether it's present or not and how many R waves, and then we will go to the PR interval. So the P wave, as we said before, it's representing the impulse from the SA node to the atrium. So any problem in the SA node, it will cause a problem in the P wave. So we have either two conditions. The P wave might be present and the P wave might be absent. So we will take the first condition. The P wave, once it's present, means that the SA node is working perfectly. Okay, so because the impulse is coming from the SA node to the AV node to the bundles and Purkinje fiber, but as long as we call this is a sinus rhythm, so means that the impulse is coming from the SA node or sinoatrial node. So as we said before, once the impulse is coming from here, there will be a P wave in the ECG. So any abnormality here means abnormality in the SA node or the atrium. You got that? Okay. So as we said, this is a sinus rhythm. This is a normal ECG. You keep it always in your mind. So we have always a small deflection here. It's called P wave, which is representing the atrium. Okay, you got that? And then the QRS, which is this, we will discuss it later, and this is representing the ventricle. So this is the P wave, as we said. It's a small up deflection before each QRS. This is very important. Keep it always in your mind. So we call it sinus rhythm. What if the P wave is not shown, is absent? So as we said before, the SA node is just like a battery. So if you have a problem with your battery in the phone, it's not going to work. So either the SA node now is dead or diseased, or we have a stronger focus here. So if we have a problem here in the SA node, so the SA node will be diseased, or maybe we have another active focus elsewhere, maybe in the AV node, maybe in the bundle, maybe elsewhere. It's more active than the SA node, so it will override the SA node and will be the pacemaker. This is the natural or the normal pacemaker in the SA node. And if we have another active or more stronger focus, this will cause changes in the P wave. Let's see now. So we have two conditions. Either the SA node is not working perfectly, and this is the normal battery of the heart, or maybe another stronger focus is here. We have a lot of diagnoses, so in either condition. Let's take the first one first. in case that the SA node is not working. So the heart has to find another point if this is working, and now it's diseased. So it's not working perfectly as before. So let's say it reached to 50% activity, or maybe it's 10% or not working at all. So the heart has to find the next stronger point, which is the AV node. So if this is dead already, the SA node is dead, so the AV node now is the pacemaker of the heart. So we will call this, instead of sinus rhythm, we will call it nodal rhythm. Means that the pacemaker now is in the AV node. Okay, so we'll call it nodal rhythm. So now this is the pacemaker. Of course, it will not be faster than the normal pacemaker of the heart. So as we said before, this is how we show the nodal rhythm. It's exactly the same like sinus rhythm, but there is one difference. Can anybody know it? There is no P wave. Why there is no P wave here? If there is a SA node is working perfectly, it will stimulate the whole atrium, so there will be P wave, as we said before. But if this is dead already, and now the AV node is the pacemaker, it will stimulate all of them together. So the atrium and ventricle in the same time, and because the QRS here is larger, so the P wave is here, but you cannot see it. It's behind the R wave, okay? So the difference, we don't care about whether it's behind or not. So I don't find a P wave like the sinus, okay? So the difference between this and the sinus, and what we are going to do throughout all of this presentation, is always to compare between the normal and the abnormal. So the clue here is that the AV node now is the pacemaker. It will stimulate both of them in the same time, so the P wave will be masked or hidden inside the QRS. You cannot see it anymore. Okay, so the clue here that you find a same ECG like sinus, but without P wave. Can anybody see a P wave here? Of course not. Okay, so as we said, this is called nodal, or sometimes we call junction. It's a junction between the atrium or the ventricle. So as I told you before, always compare with the normal. So this is the normal with a very beautiful P wave, and here this quite the same, but compare please between both strips. First one is the sinus, you can see a clear P wave. The second one, no P wave. But it's exactly like the sinus, so we call this one nodal rhythm. This is the first case that the P wave is absent. So the second one, suppose that SA node is dead, AV node is also dead, so the heart has to find something. So it will find the next pacemaker comes in his way, which is the ventricle. So it's called idioventricular. So the pacemaker now is not in the SA node anymore, is not in the AV node anymore, but in the ventricle. As long as we said ventricle, so the QRS has to be wide. Because the pacemaker has come from here, so it should be wide. So as you see, this is the idioventricular rhythm. We have bradycardia, and we have wide QRS, and no P wave. Why no P wave? Because the pacemaker is here. It doesn't reach to the atrium. Okay? So the pacemaker now is in the ventricle, so we call idioventricular rhythm or ventricular rhythm. Okay? So what is the clue? Quick diagnosis. First of all, no P wave. Second, wide QRS. Third, it should be regular. And fourth, bradycardia. If you find something like that, this is idioventricular rhythm. So always compare between the normal and the abnormal. Here we can see a beautiful B wave. The QRS is narrow. Here the QRS are very wide, as you can see. So when you see this, this is ventricular. Okay? And we cannot see a P wave. Why we don't have a P wave? Because the pacemaker is in the ventricle, not in the atrium anymore. So no P wave will be shown. This is the second condition, that we can have no P wave. The third one, we might have what we call pose. What is the pose? Suppose that the SA node is working, and for like 1 or 2 seconds, it stopped to work, and then again, it start to work again. So only for like 1 to 2 seconds, it will stop working. How can we find this in ECG? Very clearly. We have a sinus note here, sinus beat, and then a flat line. And then again, the heart starts to contract again. So what we call this flat line, whether your patient is disconnected from the ECG or you have a sinus pose. What do we mean with the sinus pose? Means that the SA node is slept for like 2 or 3 seconds and then wake up again and start to work. So that we call sinus pose. Okay? No P wave, no QRS, less than 3 seconds, then the heart will start to work all again. You get that? So there was supposed to be a QRS here and P wave, but because the SA node has a problem for like 3 seconds, it stopped to work and then again it started to work all over again. So this is we call sinus pose. As we said before, this is the normal, this is abnormal. I think this is one of the most easy strip. Okay, then suppose that the SA node stopped to work, the AV node stopped to work, and no other pacemaker is able to start working the heart again. So what the heart will do? No pacemaker, no battery. So what shall I do? It's a flat line. So before you say that this is asystole, A means no, asystole, you have to check the patient connection. Because maybe one of your electrodes is disconnected and you have a flat line. Don't go and start CPR unless you check the carotid pulse and you make sure that the patient is connected. If the patient is perfectly connected, so you have to make sure that this patient doesn't have asystole. This is cardiac arrest. Patient is dying in this case. So we have to start CPR. What does it mean? Means that no pacemaker is available here. So no SA node, no AV node, no idioventricular rhythm, nothing at all. You got that? So we call this asystole. The clue here is that we don't have any P wave, we have no QRS, we have nothing at all. It's only a flat line. So we call it asystole. So always compare with the normal, as we always saying, this is the normal. Why I'm repeating the normal? Because if you keep this one in your mind, you can know the abnormal. If you exactly know how the normal looks like, so you will be able to say, this is abnormal. Okay, now we finished the first problem. If we have an SA node problem, so what if we have a stronger focus, maybe a more active focus? So the SA node is working perfectly, it has no problem, but you have stronger guys coming to overcome. So the ECG will not be the same like normal one. So it depends on where is this stronger guy comes from. Is it come from the atrium and how much strong he is? So this makes the difference of the ECG. If the strong focus is coming from the atrium, we have the SVT. So this is the normal. SA node is not working. As you can see now, the pacemaker is here and it's more faster than the SA node. So it will override, it will take his job. And now the pacemaker is here, but it's a little bit faster. So this is how we call SVT or supraventricular tachycardia. What is the difference between this and the sinus tachycardia, as we say before? No P wave. Why we have no P wave? Because once we have the pacemaker is here in the junction, as we said before, it stimulates the ventricle and the atrium in the same time, so P wave will not be shown. So it is the same like sinus tachycardia, but without P wave. So the clue here, no P wave, it's not a QRS like sinus tachycardia, it's very regular like sinus tachycardia, but the problem, you cannot find a P wave here, like sinus tachycardia. And always compare with the normal. This is, I brought this exactly to know the difference between the normal heart rate, the sinus tachycardia, and the supraventricular tachycardia or SVT. We call SVT. Okay? So here this is normal heart rate 75. Here this is sinus tachycardia heart rate is almost 100. And here it's the heart rate is very rapid. It's more than 150. But in the same time, no P wave like this. So once I cannot see a clear P wave, so this is not sinus tachycardia, so this is supraventricular tachycardia. That's why I brought the strip in the middle in order to compare. So what if the focus or the strong focus in different origin? It's here. We called it atrial fibrillation. It's many areas in the heart, not only one single focus, but many foci or many spots in the heart is more active now than the SCA node. So this will give you what we call atrial fibrillation. What atrial fibrillation is, it's no P wave, of course, and the heart rate should be irregular. And in most of cases, we have tachycardia. So the clue first, the no P wave, we have not a QRS like the tachycardia, and we have irregularity. So if you measure between the distance between the R wave, they are not the same. So once you see regular ECG and no P wave, in most of the case, this is AF or atrial fibrillation. Okay, so compare between the sinus, this is the normal, this is the sinus tachycardia, okay? We have a clear P wave here, and this is supraventricular, the one we said before. It's the same like this, very regular as we can see, but without P wave. And finally, this is AF. What is the difference between sinus tachycardia and AF? It's completely irregular, as we see. Here, we have a constant distance between the R wave, but in the last one, we have completely irregular ECG. So this is we call AF, or atrial fibrillation. So this is the second condition where the P wave can be absent. The last one is something similar to the AF, but it's a little bit slower heart rate, okay, as we can see here. So it's the same, but not multiple foci. It's here in the one atrium, and it's a little bit slower than the AF, but it has a very, very characteristic finding in the ECG. As you can see here, up and down deflections. It's something like the sawtooth, okay? So exactly the same like sawtooth. So once you see something like that, we call atrial flutter. So this is very pathognomonic or very characteristic finding for atrial flutter, what we call, it's like a saw here. So again, the clue, no P wave, but we have multiple F wave called flutter wave, and it could be regular or irregular, and most of the cases it's regular. So just compare. This is the normal, as we said always, and this is the atrial flutter. Big difference. Here we have single P wave, but here we have multiple F wave. It's something like sawtooth. So, okay. So now the strong point is not in the atrium, as we said in this condition, not SVT, not AF, and not atrial flutter, but it's in the ventricle. This is more dangerous. So now we have a battle between the SA node, which is normal, and a stronger guy comes from the ventricle. As we said, he cannot do anything against him. So this one in the ventricle will be the pacemaker. We have two conditions. Whether we have ventricular tachycardia. So why we said ventricular in this strip? Because the QRS is wide. So once you see a wide QRS here, in most of the cases it comes from the ventricle. In most of the cases, okay? This is the basics ECG. So advanced ECG is different because cardiologists know that sometimes it's from the atrium, but it's still wide. But basics ECG here, we say that whenever you see a wide QRS, the pacemaker is from the ventricle. And why we say tachycardia? Because if you calculate the heart rate here, this is heavy red line, the next one here, so only two boxes in between, so the heart rate is 150. So it's tachycardia, ventricular tachycardia. Very simple. Okay. Let's take the clue first. No P wave, of course no P wave. Why? Because it's not in the atrium. The pacemaker now in the ventricle. So no P wave. So it's wide QRS. Why? Because it's in the ventricle, it's tachycardia, and it's regular. We have two types of ventricular tachycardia. Either it's monomorphic or polymorphic. So what do we mean with this? Monomorphic means that all QRS are quite the same shape. They have the same. So it's called mono. Mono means the same, morphic shape. Or It could be polymorphic, which is more dangerous. As you can see, yes, it's tachycardia, it's still ventricular. Why ventricular? Because it's wide QRS, and in the same time, it's regular, but it has a different shape. So we call that poly, means many, morphic shape. Many shapes or polymorphic. It doesn't have the same shape. This is more dangerous, and we call this torsade de bois, and in most of the case, patient might need a DC shock immediately. Okay, compare between the normal and the abnormal, as we always say. So this is the sinus, this is the monomorphic ventricular tachycardia. Why ventricular? QRS is wide. Why tachycardia? Because the heart rate is more than 100, so it's 150 in this case. So why monomorphic? Because all of them are quite the same shape. Correct? The second type, we have tachycardia. Why tachycardia? Because you can see the heart rate is more than 100, it's almost 250. And why polymorphic? Because they don't have the same shape. So the last thing, exactly like ventricular tachycardia, but more faster. The tachycardia, as we said before, might reach like 200. The heart rate might be 250, like that. But in this case, the heart rate might be 400 to 600. So can you imagine that your heart is beating not 60, not 70, not 100, but 600? Imagine that it's not contracting, it's fibrillating. It's like this. So as long as it's contracting, but it's contracting in a very fast way, 600 beats per minute, means that the heart rate is very fast, so the heart doesn't have the time to contract and relax, so it will be fibrillating. So actually there is no contraction. It's fibrillating. So if you don't give the patient immediate DC shock, in this case, patient is gone. You lost him. So the same as we said in ventricular tachycardia, but the heart rate is very, very, very rapid, as you can see. So the heart is not contracting, it's only fibrillating. So what we have here is no P wave, no QRS, nothing at all. You have only a line wandering, a baseline. It's up and down deflection. There is no clear ECG, as you can see before. If you don't give the patient an immediate DC shock, patient is gone. Of course, we are not doing it with ironing machine, but we are doing it with a defib. This is the way we give the patient the defibrillation. So 2 barrels, you put it in the patient chest, give the joules, 360 joules, patient is going back to normal. This is an emergency situation. If you don't give the patient immediate DC shock, patient is gone. So no P wave and no QRS, and you have only wavy line. So this is called ventricular fibrillation. So we have 2 types of ventricular fibrillation, as we will see, whether it's a coarse VF or fine VF, means that it's clear that we have wavy line or it's a little bit wavy. So we have 2 different types, and we will see in the strips the difference between them. Both of them, they need emergency DC shock. So this is the normal, this is the coarse VF, we call it coarse, or fine VF. You may say that this is a flat line, it's asystole, it's a flat line. No, actually it's not flat line. We have some like wavy lines in between. So that's why we call this one a fine VF. Now we will go again to the Vvox.app, okay, and then we will have like some quiz here. So maybe you have to refresh your browser again before we restart the quiz. Tell me when you are all ready. Okay, let's start now. So this is not a QRS, so this is not ventricular, it is something from the atrium. Can you see a P wave here? So is it sinus pose? It's nodal, idioventricular, asystole. Only 3 people participated, guys. So maybe you have a problem in the Vvox or you are afraid to participate. So don't worry. Your name will not be shown here. Don't worry. So some people, they choose sinus pose. As we said before, sinus pose is like a flat line less than 3 seconds. So sinus pose is not correct. The correct answer here is a nodal rhythm. So why we said nodal? Because it's exactly the same like sinus, but without P wave. So the SA node is not the pacemaker anymore. Now the AV node, so we call it nodal rhythm. You get that? Okay, so let's take the second poll. Before we start here, just focus on this segment, right in the middle of the screen. I need everyone to participate. Only 6 people. 7, 10, everyone. We have 20 attendees here. 18, excellent. 2 people are not participating. I will know you. 20 people, good guys. So 85% they said sinus pose, and some people they said idioventricular. So idioventricular is not correct because the idioventricular, as we said before, it's no P wave, and the QRS should be more wide than this. And I told you, focus on the middle of the strip. We have like a flat line for like less than 3 seconds. So the heart slept for 2 or 3 seconds. It's called sinus pose. So this is the correct answer. So 85%. So let's start the second one, but just take like 3 seconds to look at that. I think this is one of the most easy strip. We have 20 people now participating. I hope that 100% answers are correct in this strip. So 18 people, 21. Let's go to 21, please. Okay, time is up. Again, 2 people are not here. So some people, they said nodal. Some people, they said idioventricular. It's a flat line, nothing at all. We have no rhythm. So this is as, A means no, asystole, okay? So it's good to make mistakes because you will learn from your mistakes. So people who said nodal, we should have a QRS. The same like sinus without P wave, okay? But people who said idioventricular, the QRS is wide and we have no P wave. This is the clue. People who said asystole, they are correct. Why? Because we have a flat line. A means no systole contraction, no contraction, so no electricity, so flat line. But I told you before, once you see something like that in your patient's monitor, go and check the connection first. Second, you check the carotid pulse and you start the basic life support. Check the patient responsiveness and then check the carotid pulse, check the breathing. You cannot feel the pulse, no breathing, start CPR and call for help. But maybe you have only 1 or 2 electrodes are off. So before you start chest compression, make sure that the patient is connected perfectly. Just have like 5 seconds to look at this strip, make up your mind, and then choose the correct answer. So I'll give you a clue, just because I'm a very kind guy here. So is it narrow or wide? It's wide. So is it atrium or ventricular? Ventricular. So I think I helped all of you. I need 20 people to respond, please. 21. 19. The same 2 people. I'll find you. I'll find you. 2 people are not participating. I don't know why. Okay, time is up. Okay, so some people choose sinus pose. Again, people. Sinus pose means that the heart is normal working and then you have only 3 seconds flat line, then going back again. So here we have YQRS, so we said ventricular. So the pacemaker is not in the SA node anymore, is not in the AV node anymore, it's in the ventricle. So 2 clues here. First of all, we have YQRS, and the second of all, we have no P wave. Okay? So once you see something like that, it's ventricular. So the correct answer here is idioventricular. So 95% of you, you got the diagnosis. So before I start this poll or this quiz, so I will give you a clue. I'm a kind guy, as I said. So this is regular or irregular? No P wave? No P wave. Okay. Can you see a sawtooth? Sawtooth? No. Okay, so at least we excluded number 2. So we have now to choose between first and third one. Go, 22. I need to know who's these two people. I'm suspecting one of them. Anyway, 19 people participating is not, 20 now, good. So, although that I said it's not atrial flutter, still some people, they want to choose it, no problem. So, at least the majority is going to atrial fibrillation, so it's good. Once we have no P wave, irregularity, as you can see, nothing else, it's AF, it's atrial fibrillation, okay? So once we have no P wave, what is the difference between SVT and AF? Here it's completely irregular in SVT. In AF, it's completely irregular. So both of them, they don't have P wave. Okay, I got that. But in AF, it's completely irregular, like the strip you can see now on the screen. And in SVT, it's completely irregular. This is the difference. Atrial flutter is excluded, as I said. I gave you a clue. There is no sawtooth, so no atrial flutter. So the correct answer here, and 65% of you reach it to this one, it's atrial fibrillation. So let's take this one. Again, kind guy. Is it sawtooth? Please don't choose two. Please, I beg you. The one who is in love with atrial fibrillation, stop your love today with atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, I'm sorry. Why not ventricular? Because it's narrow, it's not wide. As long as you see a wide chorus, it's something coming from the ventricle. So no ventricular here, okay? So it's atrial. So why not atrial flutter? Because there is no sawtooth here, okay? So it's AF or SVT. The difference between them, I'll give you the answer. This is irregular, this is very irregular. SVT is very irregular. So now we start the poll. Please, guys, don't disappoint me. And remember that AF was the correct answer last slide. There is no more easy than this. So we have 19 responders. Okay. So still some people, they choose AF 10% and 89% they choose the correct answer, which is SVT. Why SVT is the correct answer? As we said before, AF should be completely irregular. So if you measure the distance between the R wave and the R wave, there is no rule at all. So it's completely irregular. But here it's completely irregular. So the correct answer should be SVT. So let's start this one. It's very easy. Carpenter. The answer is Carpenter. Okay, time is almost up. Okay, so it's atrial flutter 95%. So sawtooth is atrial flutter. Remember that. So let's take this one. This is wide, so it's ventricular. Okay? Does it have the same shape or different shape? Different shape, so give me your answer. Many shape or one shape? Is it wavy line? No, it still have like up and down deflection. So 72 is polymorphic, and this is the correct answer because this has different shape ventricular tachycardia. So what about this one? This is atrial or ventricular? Ventricular. Why? Because it's wide. Does it have the same shape or different shape, or this is VF like a wavy line, or fine VF like a flat line? Okay, so monomorphic in 87%, that's the correct answer. So now take this one. There is no actually here a QRS, as you see. We started here. Okay, but we have a wavy line. Is it coarse, means that it's very obvious, or fine means it's very, very tiny? "15 people. It's a coarse F in 86%, that's correct. So let's take this one. Monomorphic VTAC, nothing at all. We have only flat line. It's a wavy line. Is it coarse or fine? Good. 18 people. Time is up. 19 people. Oh my goodness, wow, 100%. So now, let's take quickly the QRS. Then the QRS, we have, we have to take the PR interval. We might be late for like 30 minutes more. Do we have any other lecture now here? Because we might be late like for 30 minutes. So PR interval, it's very, very important. As we said before, that the impulse is coming from the SA node from here to the AV node. And this is, as we said before, this is like a bridge, like Jabber Bridge, for example. Okay, so the car has to move from the beginning of the bridge to the end of the bridge in a slow way. It's not a highway, so in a little bit slower. So this is delay is very important. So the PR interval, it might be normal or abnormal. So the normal range is between 3 small square to 5 small square. We will see. So the abnormal, we might have a short PR, a long or variable. So we will see this in a while. So this is the Ecg strip. The normal is we measure from the beginning of the P wave until the beginning of the R wave. How many small boxes? 1, 2, 3, 4. So as we said before, the range is between 3 and 5. So if it's longer than 5, this is something wrong. If it is shorter than 3, also we have something wrong. So short is not, we will not cover it here, but long or variable means that we have a sort of block. So it should be always within 5 small square. If it's longer than this, means that we have a block. So we have 3 different types of block: first, second, and third degree. So let's see how we will differentiate between them. So the first degree is very easy. It's quite the same like sinus. Instead of 5 small square, it will be longer. So now the heart is normal, coming from the SA node to here. Instead of having a slight delay, it will be a little bit prolonged delay. That's the same like sinus, but the PR interval is a little bit longer. So if you measure here, how many boxes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. As long as it exceeds 5 means that we have first degree. But we have only P wave before each QRS. Like sinus, exactly like the normal. So as we said before, always compare between the normal and abnormal. So here it's only like 4 to 5 squares. Look here, it's almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's almost like 10 square. Okay, so only P wave before each QRS, exactly like the sinus, but the distance here is normal, the distance here is prolonged. This is sinus, the second one is first degree AV block. You got that? So what about the second degree AV block? Means that the impulse coming, second degree means not all the impulse will cross. So second degree, in the first degree, all impulse will cross, but a little bit slower. Okay? The second degree, some impulse will cross, some other will not. So we have 2 types of the second degree. We have type 1, which we call Winkbach, and we have type 2. So Mobitz type 1 and Mobitz type 2. We call it like this. So let's take the Mobitz type 1. Type 1 is a little bit benign, okay? So the impulse will come from here to here. It will be slower, and then the next one will be even more slower until it's blocked, until it's not coming. It's stopped here, okay? So normal, slower, more slower, more slower, and then it's blocked. It's not going. This is type 1, okay? How can we see this? normal PR interval count here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Then here it's a little bit more longer. Here even more longer until P wave without QRS. Means that the atrium is okay, but the impulse doesn't go to the ventricle to make a QRS or R wave here. So we have normal PR, prolonged, even more prolonged, and then P wave without QRS. Then again P wave. So you have here how many P waves here? 2. So once you have more than P wave, it's not first degree. It's not first, it's second or even third. Okay, so how can I know? I have to see. If there is a rule here, is it gradual prolongation and then drop? It's a second degree type 1. So what about the clue here? As we said before, here PR interval is normal, then a gradual prolongation. Okay, this is the difference. This is a normal PR interval, gradual prolongation, P wave, and then without QRS. Normal, gradual prolongation, P wave, no QRS. Okay? This is the rule. So if I tell you gradual prolongation, means that it's second degree type 1. So what about the second degree type 2? It's even more serious than type 1. So here, the impulse will go from the SA node normally to the ventricle, and all of a sudden it's blocked. So the PR interval is normal. Suddenly, it will not pass. So the bridge will close immediately. Okay? So how it looks like, what is the difference between this type 1 and type 2? We will see. So it's normal PR interval, normal PR interval, normal PR interval, normal PR interval. Suddenly we have P wave without QRS. Okay? So what is the difference between this and type 1? Type 1 we have gradual prolongation. So the bridge is, or the police is giving you a warning. The bridge will be slower, more slower, further slower, and then stop. Here no warning at all. So we have PR interval normal. So first of all, you look at this. We have 2 P wave here, 1 and 2. First of all, you exclude the first degree. That's not first degree. I have to think about whether second or third. So let's think about the second first. Do we have a gradual prolongation? If it's gradual prolongation, so means type 1. If I don't have gradual prolongation, it's type 2. Easy? Okay. So we have here sudden drop, although that the PR interval was going very normal. This is type 2. So always compare. I will give you the 3 here. That's normal. Only P wave before HQRS. We don't have 2 P wave here, only 1. So we call this one normal sinus. So this one, we have normal PR, gradual prolongation, more prolongation, and then drop. So as long as I have a gradual one, this is type 1. Okay? Second degree, type 1. So, or we call it Mobitz type 1. Whatever you want to call. But the other strip, the last one, there is no warning here. As a PR interval is normal, drop. And then normal, drop. So this is second degree type 2. So what about the last one, which is the third degree? This is the most serious one. Patient might have to go to the cath lab to insert a pacemaker. In this case, here the atrium is working through the SA node, but all of them are not crossing. So the atrium is working all alone. Ventricle has to find another pacemaker again. So it's totally dissociated. So here the SA node is only activating the atrium and nothing is crossing. There is a complete cut here. A third degree or complete heart block means that all impulse will not be able to cross. So how we can find this? So we know that if we find that we have bradycardia like this, and the PR interval here is very variable. You cannot put the first rule or second rule, I mean type 1, type 2, you cannot find it. There is no gradual prolongation and drop like that. You cannot find. Once you find the distance is very wide like that, we have extreme bradycardia. 2, the distance between HP wave is the same, and the distance between the R wave is the same, so this is complete. Why? Atrium is working all alone. This is the P wave. And ventricle has another pacemaker separate. There is a cut between. There is a knife there in the middle. So the ventricle will be very regular and very slow. So let's see the difference between all of them. This is the normal. This is the third. So as you see here, a very regular P wave and only one before HQRS. Here we have bradycardia and the distance between the R wave are constant, the P wave are constant, and they have no relation at all between them. So the PR interval is very variable. This is what we call complete heart block. So let's take all of them all together. This slide is to compare between all of them. This is the normal one. This is the first. Why we call first? It's only one P wave before HQRS, but let's look at the distance here. Distance is here is like 4 squares. Look at that. How many small squares? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's almost 10. So this is exactly like the sinus, but a little bit longer PR, so we call it first degree. By the way, this is a recorded session. If anyone, I will upload it to my YouTube channel and you get the link. So no problem. You don't have to take any photos anyway. Let's take the second degree. We have 2 types. One is a little bit mild, which is type 1. We have a gradual prolongation, as we said. There is a rule to be applied here. If you look carefully, the PR interval here, gradual prolongation, drop. Here, gradual prolongation, drop. So it's type 1. Type 2, we don't have any time for gradual prolongation. Suddenly, the PR interval is quite normal and then drop. Normal, 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 and then P wave without QRS. This is type 2. Type 3, as we said, we have bradycardia, extreme bradycardia. If you measure the distance between the R wave, they should be regular. The B to B should be regular, and PR interval is variable. So now let's take the quiz as we used to. I will try to help you as much as I can. The same VVox. So let's start the quiz now. Start answer. I will try to help you. Do we have any one P wave or multiple P wave? It's multiple. So first degree should be removed. Okay. My goodness. Second degree type 2. Exactly. Wow. So before I start this poll, let me help you. Is it single P wave or multiple? One or more than? More than. Okay, so first degree should be removed. Please don't choose 3. Okay? So, is it second degree? You can have a gradual prolongation. No gradual prolongation, you can see. So, also you have to rule out type 1. So, I will leave between type 2 and third degree. You choose one of them. Go. 8 people, 13 people, good. We have bradycardia, extreme bradycardia. Pacemaker has to be inserted at once. Immediate shift to the cath lab, please, for pacemaker. So, most of the people, they said third degree, which is the correct answer. Okay. So let's take this one. So is it multiple P wave or only one P wave? One P wave, okay? So is it third degree? It is second degree. So we have to rule it out because second degree or third degree, we should have multiple P wave. Go. Sorry for that. I choose the wrong music, sorry. 16 people. Good. 5 seconds more. So now we are going to the QRS, and this should be quite easy because most of the strips we have already seen before in the other strips before. So the R wave, it might be present or might be absent. So present, like we said before, this is the normal sinus. This is exactly like the sinus, but without P wave. And the QRS is very narrow, so it's atrium, not ventricular. And it's very regular, so it's SVT. This is sawtooth, so this is atrial flutter. This is AFib or atrial fibrillation because we have irregular heart rate. This is ventricular, Y ventricular, and Y tachycardia because it's rapid and at the same time Y QRS. So all of these conditions, we have clearly see a an R wave here, and this is examples of this. So now we will see some examples of absent R wave. And this is, I think we have seen before, we have seen a pose. This is a sinus pose, as we said before, no R wave and no P wave. Or asystole, you have a flat line. Or ventricular tachycardia, no R wave like this, it's only wavy line, whether it's coarse or fine. And then this is the normal shape of the QRS. Sometimes we have abnormal shape. So like idioventricular, ventricular tachycardia, and pacemaker, Pvcs. Pvcs, I'll take it very quickly. The Pvcs, okay, just for the sake of time. As I told you, sometimes the pacemaker is the SA node, and there is only another focus giving only one impulse. If this is coming from the atrium, it will be exactly like the sinus, but a little bit early. Why we call this premature atrial? Premature means early. It has the same shape like normal sinus, but a little bit comes early. So what if it's ventricular? It will be wide. This is the difference. It comes early, but it has different shape than the normal rhythm. So this is we call ventricular or premature ventricular, PVCs. So if two coming together, two PVCs. Why this is PVCs? Because it's wide and it doesn't have the same shape like the normal one, and they are both coupled together, or they are both of them, they are married, so we call this couple, okay, or couplet. So if they are coming three together, so it's just like identical three twins. And this is we call triplet. If it's now one normal, one PVCs, one normal, one PVCs, we call this bigeminy. Means every single normal beat. So what if we have two normal and then one PVCs, two normal and then one PVCs? If you have this rule, it's called trigeminy. Means every third one, tri means three, so every third one we have a PVCs. So, and we have taken the AF before many times. So let's take this quiz and I'll try to help you. This is should be the last one. So you have a normal, and then ups. Oh, this one is coming a little bit early. Does it have the same shape like the normal? Yes, of course. So is it ventricular? No, because it has the same shape like the atrial. So is it AF? Of course not, because AF no P wave at all. So we have premature atrial, premature ventricular, PACs or PVCs. Just start one of them. $15 answers. 16, good. 17. So most of the answers are toward premature atrial, which is correct. Why atrial is correct? Because it's the same shape like the sinus, but a little bit comes early. So this we call it premature atrial contraction. So let's take the second one. I'll try to help you. Do we have a P wave? Can anybody see a P wave? No, okay. So is it premature atrial, premature ventricular, or AF? So no P wave, irregular. I told you the answer before. No P wave, completely irregular. So the answer should be clear now. So the time is up. 14 people participated. So at least 64% they choose AF, which is the correct. So no P wave, irregular means AF. So once you view this lecture again, I think it will be more easier for you to identify the different cardiac rhythm. So let's take this one. Can anybody see in the strip something abnormal? What it is? Tell me. Which one? This one, the last one, okay? So, okay. Does it have the same shape like the normal? So, I will leave the answer between 2 and 3. Thanks God. Thanks God. So, it's premature ventricular. So, now we have multiple premature ventricular, but it has a rule here. One normal, one Pvcs. One normal, one Pvcs. So, choose the answer. Is it couplet? It's two together, merit. Is it one and one? So it's bigeminy, or every two, it's trigeminy. So you have the answer. Okay. So the correct answer should be bigeminy. Why bi? Every second. Okay. So let's take this one. Normal Pvcs. Normal Pvcs means every third. You will never find a kind examiner like me. No way. So every third. Is it couplet? Two together? No. Definitely no. Is it every second? No. It's every third. Third means bi or tri. Okay, so you have time to change your answer. Oh, wow. I think you know it yourself. Nobody helped you. Okay, so let's take this one. Two married together. It's Pvcs, but they are married together. I think I give you the answer. 100% correct. It's couplet. Okay? So, until now, I think I reached to the end of my presentation. So I know that it took like 1.5 hours. I'm sorry for delay, but I think it's very important. I think we reached to our objective that we showed in the first slide. So we know exactly how to calculate the heart rate. We have two methods, whether the heart rate is regular or irregular. Number two, we have to check the normal ECG and keep in mind always. Number three, you can be able, after reviewing, I think it's very difficult now to know all of these strips or all of these cardiac rhythm all in 1 hour or 1.5 hours. But if you review the ECG lecture once again, maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, I think it will be more easier for you to know different cardiac rhythm. And having said that, you will be able to manage your case accordingly. Your patient might have asystole, but definitely he is living and he's talking to you just because one or two electrodes are disconnected, so you have a flat line. So don't go start CPR before you know exactly that if it's connected or not. Number two, if you find a patient with a first-degree heart block, he should not be managed the same way like third-degree heart block. If you have a patient with AF, it's not like VF. So VF means immediate ironing machine or DC shock. But AF, you can manage, in most of the case, we can manage it through drugs. So I will give only 5 minutes. If someone has any question, then I'll be able, please go ahead. What is the what? The what? Okay. So ventricular fibrillation means that the patient is having a cardiac arrest. As we said before, heart is contracting from 60 to 100. It can reach 200. If you are playing squash, for example, and or football, so that your heart rate might go to 200. But imagine that your heart rate is 600 beats per minute. So as I said before, it's not contracting, but only fibrillating. Fibrillating means the heart stopped. It's not pumping the blood out of the ventricle, so the heart will stop. Immediately you will find the patient lost his consciousness. If you put your hand on the carotid, you feel nothing at all. Patient is not breathing. So this is the basic life support. First of all, you check the patient responsiveness. Hey sir, are you okay? Are you okay? He's not responding. That's number one. Number two, put your hand on the carotid pulse, no carotid pulse, because the heart is fibrillating. Third, that no breathing. What you have to do immediately, you start CPR, good chest compression. Second, shout for help. Third, your colleague will bring the crash cart. Okay? So the help will come to you. One will take care of the breathing. One will take care of the complete or continuous chest compression until you connect the defibrillator. So once the defib is connected to your patient, you will see a wavy line, okay, in front of you, which is called a ventricular fibrillation. What you shall do, 360 joule, without giving any sedation to the patient, just put some gels on the pads, or you can attach the combo pads to your patient chest, and then immediately defib the patient or cardiovert the patient, 360 joule, patient will come back to sinus in most of the cases. You get that? So it's one type of the cardiac arrest. We have asystole, we have ventricular fibrillation, and we have what we call pulseless electrical activity. So in asystole and pulseless means, what do we mean with pulseless? Means that we have like bradycardia on the monitor. When you feel the pulse, nothing is felt. Nothing is felt at all. So what you have to do is to start chest compression. Asystole, chest compression. But in VF, give a DC shock. So the more quick you give the DC shock to the patient, the more survival or good survival. So any other question? So I think we can conclude our lecture today. So thank you again for your attendance. I hope that it was helpful for you. And especially for those who are going to the ACLS exam, I think it will be very helpful for them. Thank you so much, and nice to see you this morning.